it is. I'm stupid. It literally says record right where I was looking. Okay, so let me just repeat myself for this first example, So this, to get r minus 10 is less than or equal to -4, you're going to add 10 to both sides. The 10s will cross out. You get r is less than or equal to 6. -4 plus 10 is 6. And then to graph it, put a 6 in the middle, one bigger, one less. And then would this be an open or a closed circle, do you think, MJ? Open circle or closed circle?
This must be a closed one.
What?
Right? This is closed, right?
Closed. Yep, you're right. So that's shaded in. Color that in. And then does my arrow go to the right or to the left? Isabella, what do you think? Arrow to the right or left if it's less than or equal?
It goes to the right, no, left.
Do you say left?
Yeah, left.
Yep, good. Okay, very good. Yeah, it kind of matches as long as, I was saying this to a couple people that joined my tutorial Zoom yesterday, as long as the variable is on the left, the direction of your inequality symbol matches the direction that your arrow goes. So it's kind of a little helpful trick there for you. Okay? All right, so that is example 2. Everyone have that on their notes. All right, I'm going to, now obviously in the chat, you can't draw a graph for me. So I'm just gonna have you type your answers for these ones into the chat directly to me when you think you have it. For the less than or equal to, less than or greater than, there's actually a key on your keyboard for those, but if you can't find it, you can just type the words less than or greater than. This one, there is no key on your keyboard for greater or equal. So you could type the greater than sign and the equal sign next to each other. That would be fine. Or you could just type out greater or equal. Okay, so work on these two. And then we'll go over the answers. Type your answers to me in the chat when you have them. Good, guys. Everything looks good. Just be careful. Peyton, you're missing a negative sign over there. It should be -11 instead of +11. Yeah, privately, just so that obviously if you send them to everybody, then everyone will see your answer. All right, guys, good job. I will give you about 30 more seconds if you haven't already sent me your answer. All right, so the first one should have been z is less than -11. Second one should be r greater than or equal to 20. Okay. All right. Again, I know there is no greater or equal to button on your computer, so it's hard to type that one. So just make sure when you're doing it by hand, make sure that you are writing the symbols down correctly. Okay, so that's adding and subtracting. It's pretty basic. We do have a little bit of some difference between what we do with equations and what we do with inequalities when it comes to multiplication. So multiplication in division, as long as the number you're multiplying or dividing by is positive, then everything stays the same. So I believe that this is on your notes. There's a blank for you to fill in the middle of the page where it says, if you multiply or divide by a positive number, the inequality symbol, you're going to fill in the words stays the same. Okay, now you might be thinking, well, yeah, as opposed to what? Because that's what we just did. We kept the inequality symbol the same. Well, what actually happens, and we're going to go over this in a second, is if you multiply or divide by a negative number, you actually have to reverse the inequality symbol. Let's start with just positives first to make sure that we understand the difference. I'll do positives first and then negatives second. Okay, so just for now, fill in the blank where it says stays the same, and then we'll fill in the other blank when we're done with the positives. All right? Okay.
It's already filled in. It's not a blank.
Okay, perfect. I couldn't remember if on mine I have the answer key, so I know mine are already filled in. I couldn't remember if yours was filled in or not. All right, so for this first example, 2x is less than negative 12. What would you do to get rid of the 2? Colin.
Divide it by 2.
Yeah. So here's what I mean. If the number you're dividing or multiplying by is positive, so we're dividing by 2. 2 is positive. Even though we get an answer of negative 6, I'm not concerned whether my answer is positive or negative. I'm concerned about this number right here. So if the number you divide or multiply by is positive, your answer, your inequality symbol just stays the same. So it was less than in the original problem. It's still less than in the answer. Okay, so write that down. This is in your notes. To draw a graph, a number line, put negative 6 in the middle. Negative 5 goes to the right, negative 7 on the left. Be careful when you're putting negative numbers on the number line that you don't put them in the wrong order. Open or closed circle. Alexis, easily. Open or closed?
Oh.
Do you say open? Did you say open? Yeah, I thought so. Okay, open. Arrow to the right or to the left? Josh, right or left arrow?
Left.
Good. Done. Okay. All right. So again, since I divided by a positive 2, even though my answer is negative, my less than symbol comes down and stays the same. Let's do another one where we're multiplying by a positive. So 2/3 x is less than 6. Who remembers how do I get rid of the 2/3? How do I get rid of the 2/3? Peyton, go ahead.
You multiply it by its reciprocal.
Yeah, multiply by its reciprocal. So you're going to flip it, 3/2. Flip it on the other side also, 3/2. Put a 1 under the 6 so I can multiply them. Over here, everything cancels except the x. And then 6 and 2, you can cross simplify. You can divide both 6 by 2 and 2 by 2. So that becomes a 3. 3 times 3 is 9. And since I multiplied by a positive 3/2, my inequality symbol stays the same. It just comes down as a less than, nothing changes. Okay, quick number line graph. 9 in the middle, 10 on the right, 8 on the left. Open circle again to the left again. Okay, again, remember, we're not concerned about my answer being positive or negative. What we're looking at is this number. If the number that you multiply or divide by on both sides is positive, everything stays the same. Okay? Now, this is the tricky part, and this is the part that we tend to have trouble with. And I will show you how to do it, and then I will show you, hopefully, if we have time, why we have to do it. Okay, so if the number that we multiply or divide by is negative, we actually have to flip the inequality symbol. So if it started out as less than, when I write my answer, it becomes greater than. If I started out as greater than or equal, my answer, it flips and becomes less or equal. Okay, I will show you how to do it first, and then I'll show you why we have to do this second. Unfortunately, you know, it's not one of those things where I just am making this up to make it more confusing for you. I wish I could, you know, not have to confuse you by adding this in, but this is part of the, you know, the nature of the beast when we're working with negatives, is that it causes some problems. So flip over to the back of your notes and find this example. Negative 2x is less than negative 12. So it's almost the same as the one we already did, but instead of 2x, now we have a negative 2x. Okay, so instead of dividing by a positive 2, what am I going to divide by for this problem? What would I divide by for this problem on both sides?
-2.
Right, so we want to divide by negative 2. Okay, now again, if the number that you multiply or divide by is negative, what happens is when I write my answer, so negative 2's cancel, just like they did when we did equations. Negative 12 divided by negative 2 becomes a positive 6. But since this number right here is a negative, what happens is my less than symbol, when I come down in my answer, becomes a greater than symbol. Okay, I'll show you why in a second, but write that down. Your quick number line for this would be 5, 6, 7, open circle to the right. Okay, now let me show you why we have to do this. So if x is greater than 6, someone give me a number that's bigger than 6. Any number.
7.
7. Wow, good job. Okay, if I take 7 and I plug it in to my original problem, what's 2 times negative 7?
-14.
Negative 14. And if you remember what we did yesterday, how we talked about the true and the false statements, is negative 14 less than negative 12? Yes or no? Yes, it is. So that is true. What if I did not switch this to a greater than and I left it as a less than? Someone give me a number that's less than 6.
5.
5. Good job. If I plug a 5 in instead, because it's less than 6, negative 2 times 5 gives you negative 10. And look what happens. It says negative 10 is less than negative 12. Is negative 10 degrees colder than negative 12 degrees? No, it's not true. So basically what happens is if you don't flip it, because when you divide or multiply both sides by a negative, it changes both signs. So you have to flip this, or else you're showing the wrong set of solutions. Okay, it's hard to remember. You have to get good at remembering that and knowing specifically which number is the one that has to be negative to cause the inequality to flip. So let's try another example, and then I will give you some practice ones to help you see if you can identify which ones will need to be flipped and which ones won't. Okay, so again, almost the same example we did with all positives. The only difference is that I made the 2/3 negative. So instead of multiplying by 3 over 2, we're going to multiply by negative 3 over 2 on both sides. So same thing we did with the positives, but we're making it negative. So everything over here cancels out except the x. And then over here, we did this earlier. The only difference is instead of 3 times 3, now we have 3 times negative 3, which is negative 9. Okay, now look, since this number is negative, the number that we multiplied by on both sides, this less than symbol has to flip and become a greater than symbol. Okay? Because multiplying on both sides by a negative changes both signs from positive to negative or negative to positive. So you have to flip the inequality sign also. All right, just a quick number line. Negative 10, negative 9, negative 8, open circle to the right. Okay, so what's nice about inequalities is that like our steps are for the most part the same as what we already learned in this chapter. We really already know how to solve these. The difference is you have to be well, two differences. You graph your answers with a number line, and you have to be very careful when you're multiplying or dividing by a negative number. You have to remember to flip the inequality sign. Okay, so let me show you guys a couple of examples. I don't want you to solve these. I just want you to tell me, I'm going to number them, and I want you to tell me which ones would I have to flip the inequality sign for. Don't solve. So here's number 1, 2, 3, and 4. Type privately to me in the chat, which ones do you think I would have to flip the inequality signs for? I'll give you a hint. There are 2 that you would have to flip the inequality sign for. Josh, good. Colin, you got 1 of them. Branson, good. Peyton, you got 1 of them. Luke, good. Spencer, you got 1 of them. MJ, you got 1 of them. Lexi, you got 1 of them. Katerina, you got 1 of them. Taylor, you got 1 of them. Elise, great. Colin and MJ, no, that's not the other one. Good, Spencer, got it. That's right, MJ. Good, Colin. Peyton and Lexi, you still have 1 correct. So see if you can put your first 2 answers together. Yes, Katerina. Guys, remember, make sure you're participating. This is not optional because this is part of your attendance too. So you have to be making sure you're participating. Okay, the answers are, most of you got it right, 3 and 4. How can you tell that you're going to have to flip for 3 and 4 without even doing it? How can you tell? Colin, go ahead.
Because I saw that they were both negative numbers.
Specifically, which numbers though? Like a number, which number? It has to be this specific number, right? Because that's the one you're going to divide by. And number 4, which is the one that's going to make it flip? The -1/2 or the -5?
The -5.
No. This one, because this is the one you're going to multiply or divide by.
Oh, yeah.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
This one you're just adding. Adding and subtracting will never flip the sign. So that's a good rule of thumb. Adding and subtracting will never cause it to flip. This one you're going to divide by a +3, so it won't flip it. Remember, it's not if the answer is negative, it's if the number you're multiplying or dividing by is negative. Okay? So here you're dividing by -6. Here you would multiply both sides by -2/1. Okay? All right, guys, that's really all the time we have for today. So your homework for this weekend is to do 8.7 in your packet, the white packet, and upload pictures by Sunday night at 11 p.m. Not tonight, you can have till Sunday, and we'll see you on Monday. Okay, feel free to pop back in a tutorial if you need some help while you're working on your homework.